What's going on, everybody? Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we're getting a 6.4-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 403, and a 19.5:9 aspect ratio. With the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, we're getting a 6.4-inch 90Hz Super AMOLED display, and this phone also has a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 411, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So in general, these displays are pretty much the same. Yeah, on one hand, the A54 5G has a slightly higher refresh rate, and the A33 5G has a slightly better aspect ratio, but when you're actually using the phones for daily activities, you're really not going to notice a huge difference between the two. And in general, no matter what you're doing on them, whether you're watching videos, looking at photos, using social media, maybe even something like reading, you will get a pretty good experience either way. Now for storage, both phones have 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so definitely a great amount of storage here. Each phone also has another variant with 256GB, so if you really need more storage, with either phone you can get it. But in general, I feel like for most people, 128GB will be perfectly fine. So for the average user, you won't have to worry about storage either way. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have real nice in-display fingerprint scanners. But starting with the A54 5G, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the A33 5G. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, both fingerprint scanners worked real well, no issues at all. And again, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now for the camera setups here, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we got a real nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 32 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. With the A33 5G, we got a water drop notch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 13 megapixels, and on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. And then for video, both phones have a max recording quality of 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely nice to see here. In general, when it comes to features, these phones are pretty much the same. Both have everything you typically find in a mid-range phone, including an ultra wide camera and a macro camera, so we definitely have a good amount of flexibility here. Now, between the two, when it comes to actual photo quality, I feel like you're not really going to see a huge difference. Naturally, I would expect the A54 5G to have slightly better photo quality, especially since the sensor is a little bit more powerful, seeing as it doesn't need a depth sensing camera. But honestly, in general, for the average user, when you're doing your normal activities, unless you're really using your camera all the time, you're really not going to see a huge difference between the two. And even then, if you want a camera significantly better than the A33 5G, you're most likely going to be better off going for something a bit higher end than these, like a Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or a Google Pixel 6a, because again, between these two, there's not really a huge quality difference. So while some people might prefer one camera better than the other, they're really at the same level. To give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G. Overall, for what it is, I do think the phone takes some pretty good photos. Again, not really flagship level. Something like a Google Pixel 6a is going to be quite a bit better. But for the average user, for more daily basic activities like Snapchat, Instagram, sending photos to friends and family and stuff like that, if you're really not after crazy high quality studio level photos and you really just need something to get the job done for more normal use, the A54 5G will be perfectly fine. And then here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. And honestly, really the same kind of thing. I feel like the photo quality here is just fine. Again, I don't really see a huge difference between the two. Yeah, there is somewhat of a difference, but again, if you really want a camera that much better than the A33 5G, you might as well get something like an S21 FE, because that's where you're really going to see a huge difference in quality. But in general, for more normal casual camera use, either phone will get the job done just fine. Now for the RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Exynos 1380 processor. With the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G, this phone is getting 6GB of RAM as well with the Samsung Exynos 1280. Now when it comes to overall performance, that's really probably the most significant difference between these two. On one hand, with the A33 5G, for more average use, this phone is fast enough for stuff like web browsing, social media, watching videos, and some moderate mobile gaming. gaming. In my experience, I have done quite a bit on this phone by now, and I haven't had any performance issues whatsoever. Now, don't get me wrong, this is definitely not a super fast device, and compared to a higher end phone like a Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or even an older flagship phone like an S10, it's definitely not going to be nearly as fast, but for the average user, for what people typically use smartphones for on a daily basis, it will at least get the job done. But that being said, with the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G, this phone, while still definitely not being flagship level, is going to be significantly faster than the A33 5G. To put this into perspective, if you remember the Samsung Galaxy A73 5G, the A54 5G is around that level. So if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, maybe doing more demanding activities like playing Call of Duty for example, then I would say you will get a significantly better experience with the A54 5G. This phone is definitely at the very top of the mid-range, still not quite as fast as the entry-level flagship phones, but as far as more of a budget device goes, the A54 5G is definitely up there. Whereas with the A33 5G, again, this phone is not slow by any means, but at the same time it's a bit more average. So if performance is more important to you, then I would definitely go with the A54 5G. Now I did run a benchmark test on each phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. The A54 5G is without question definitely the faster phone between the two. Again, it's not quite flagship level, so if you're getting this phone expecting that, you will be a little disappointed, but for a mid-range phone it is really fast, and for most things you might be doing on it, you will get a great experience. But honestly, if you're not really a very heavy user, if you're doing stuff like web browsing, social media, watching videos, and maybe some occasional mobile gaming every now and then keep in mind, while the A54 5G is faster, the A33 5G is still going to be perfectly fine for that kind of thing, so you're not going to go wrong with this phone either. Now when it comes to the battery, both phones have 5000 mAh batteries that support 25 watt fast charging, so no difference here at all. But keep in mind, with the 5000 mAh battery, you can expect to get some great battery life and longevity here. So if that is more of an important thing for you, then between these two, you're really not going to go wrong either way. And with 25 watt fast charging, while not being the best fast charging ever, the charging speed is still pretty good. So I can't imagine most people will have any issues with that either. But keep in mind, in order to actually use the fast charging, you are going to need a 25 watt fast charger, and these phones don't even come with wall adapters. So if charging speed is more important to you, then keep in mind, you will have to get a good fast charger. But in case you don't have one, definitely check out the video description because I am linking to a good one there. But again, in general, if you are looking for a phone with a really good all-around battery, then either phone here will be a great choice. For the software, both phones have Android 13. The A54 5G of course came with it, whereas with the A33 5G, it originally had Android 12, but it got the update to Android 13 in December. In addition to this, with Samsung software support, with either phone, you can expect to get several other major updates in the future. So in general, if you are someone who likes to have the latest version of Android, then either phone will be a great choice. But of course, the A54 5G, being a year newer, is going to get one more major update. So if you are someone who likes to keep your phone for pretty much as long as you can, then because of this, the A54 5G might have a slight advantage. In addition to this, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, you won't have to worry about that either. But unfortunately, neither phone has a headphone jack, so if you have a normal pair of wired headphones, you are going to have to either get a pair of wireless headphones or use an adapter. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, there's really not a huge difference between these two either way. Sure, there are more small things like, again, the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G does get one more update. The display has a slightly higher refresh rate, whereas with the A33 5G, the form factor is a little bit better. The A54 5G also, I guess, technically has a slightly better camera, but in my opinion, again, the difference is really not that significant. Honestly, the only really big difference between these two phones is that with the A54 5G, this phone is quite a bit faster. So if you do want a faster device between the two, maybe you're just going to be on your phone a bit more, then you might want to go with the A54 5G. But if you're not really going to be doing a ton with your phone, but you still maybe want pretty good performance, the A33 5G will still be a perfectly fine option too. Either way though, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has a nice premium looking display, a ton of storage, a really nice camera that can record 4K videos and takes really good photos, a large battery, NFC, and great software support, then no matter what, either phone will be a great choice. But this concludes my comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A54 5G and the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G. Again, if you want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.